Bernie Sanders, AOC, were in Tempe, Arizona, in front of 15,000 people.
And there was an
really,
massive overflow outside, too.
It really is stunning. And, you're starting to see polls out of a real dissent within the Democratic Party. And to be clear, these polls, 40%, I think it is, this is off the top of my head, 40% want the Democratic Party to be more, to move towards the center. I think it's 29% want to move to the left. I can't remember the third percent. It feels it's just right.
All those people agree with Bernie the way that, in my opinion, the center moderation stuff, I don't buy.
Well, the thing is that it's very difficult to quantify this, right? I mean, or to qualify it. I mean, I have spoken to people many, many times who have said, I was either going to vote for Trump or Bernie. I have spoken to people who considered themselves moderate Democrats during the Biden years, who supported Bernie over Biden. And I'm like, you realize you're to the left of Biden. And they just didn't know. It's just
that paradigm is not applicable.
Very difficult. But I mean,
liberal
that's
means
why
professional type of stuff, like Hillary saying ending too big to fail won't stop racism. That's what people are reacting against, I'm convinced, in those polls. That's the liberalism that they're rejecting.
Let's put it this way. It's very hard to assess when you start talking about these isms. But when you start talking about issues and you start, and you go issue by issue, there is absolutely no doubt that people are going to align themselves with what AOC and what Bernie are talking about, the vast majority of Democrats. And I would also argue a significant, if not a majority of even Republicans, are going to subscribe to 80% of what AOC and Bernie say in this respect. But the
base wants to fight against the Republicans. That's what the polling reflects.
Okay, yes.
But they're right now they're associating themselves with fight. That's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah. Across however people identify themselves ideologically within the Democratic Party, the one thing they all agree on is that we want more of a fight. We want partisanship here.
Right.
And partisanship is the way that you get to the win. That's it. You cannot pursue any of these ideologies. You cannot pursue any of these policies until you're in a position of power. And the one thing that is quite clear is that the Democratic Party wants a party that is going to fight. Here is AOC in Tempe, Arizona.
And let me tell you something. This isn't just about Republicans either. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too. But that means, here's what that means. That means our communities, each and every one of us, choosing and voting for Democrats and elected officials who know how to stand for the working class. And Tempe, I want to give you your flowers for a second, because you all have been working overtime to make that happen. In fact, one thing I love about Arizonans is that you all have shown that if a U.S. Senator isn't fighting hard enough for you, you're not afraid to replace her with one who will and win.
Hint, hint.
Oh, that's not a hint. Well, actually, I want to continue on with just one more segment of that. Before we do, though, yeah, she's clearly talking about Kristen Sinema.
No, she's talking, and then, but the hint is me versus Schumer.
Oh, yeah, I guess. But she goes on to specifically hat tip to Mark Kelly and Gallego. And let's be clear here. Mark Kelly and Gallego, at least the way that Gallego has been functioning since he's become a senator, are not terribly aligned with AOC's policies and Bernie's policies. In fact, they could be close to, on the other end, about as close to the other end of that spectrum as you could find. So what's fascinating here is she is, people have talked about her, sort of filing down certain edges and not challenging, the supposed vow she made to not challenge incumbents to get that position to committee. She is on an agenda to amass as much party power as she can within the context of this party, while maintaining as much of her agenda as she can. I mean, that's what's happening.
And her status as a critic of the party, which when you heard in the audience when she said that there's a massive appetite for overhaul of the party, and she's representing that. I feel like, she's dissected endlessly, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of them just, it does include her gender. But this past month has been a masterstroke. I mean, first of all, the fact that Bernie is still kicking and making this a priority, we have to give him his ultimate credit.
The energy
it's amazing.
Guy has.
He has way more energy than Biden, with just a flashback over 4 years ago to the concerns about his health. But, there's been a lot of discussion of who's the successor to Bernie. Who is it? And I think he's making it fairly clear who he views as at least one of his ideological successors. And he's touring around the country with her. And Bernie did very well in both times he ran with Latino voters. What was the constituency that Democrats lost the most ground with? Latino voters this election cycle, arguably. I mean, they also lost a lot of working class support as well. But who does well with that is with working class voters is also Bernie. And so going to Arizona here at the beginning of this tour, I don't think is an accident. I think they're trying to re-energize that part of the party around the issue sets that both of them represent.
Well, they're hitting all of the swing states. Bernie was in Wisconsin, I think, earlier, and in.
But AOC starting there, I guess.
She's starting there, or I think she started in Nevada, and they crossed the border the other day. I mean, it'll be interesting to see who else joins them on that tour, if any other politicians. But here's what I found really sort of fascinating. And I've obviously, because he is the congressman from Worcester, Massachusetts, I have been following Jim McGovern's career for quite a while. I don't know how long he's been in Congress, but I want to say 20, maybe more. He was very, very good. I mean, he's, one of those very progressive members of Congress who you don't really hear much about. He was quite good on Latin American issues. And U.S. involvement there. But Worcester, I've never perceived as being a particularly progressive place, although things I think are changing there. But here he is. This is a clip of him in, I think it's Greenfield, Mass, which a little bit west of Worcester.
Thanks for that. I was curious how it was in relation to Worcester.
I know people are very concerned about it, but I must admit, I don't know how you get there. But here is Jim McGovern, and I don't remember. I mean, maybe there's clips of other Congress people talking about this, but I don't remember seeing Congress people, and he's not a backbencher. I mean, he sits over. He was, I think, chair of the Rules Committee. He still very well may be. Here's Jim McGovern with a very interesting thing to hear from a longtime elected politician.
We need to start thinking about out-of-the-box ideas like a general strike. it's easier said than done because it requires buy-in by everybody, right? It requires planning. But in Europe, there was a tradition of that. I mean, you saw that in Poland. When the communists were in charge in Poland, when the solidarity movement, was trying to gain traction, it was a general strike that basically, began to show the cracks in the existing government there, led the way for the solidarity movement and led Molessa to go to power. We need to start.
There you go.
That's pretty.
That's awesome.
We haven't seen that I don't remember anybody ever talking about a general strike.
No. I mean, we need more labor density. Like, that's part of the issue. And in European countries, they have, higher labor density. But still, that's something I like to hear that coming out of the mouth of a Democrat.
I hope we hear more of that kind of talk, but it both indicates that there is an understanding that this is going to require speaking directly to the people, that the idea that and the only way you do that is to provide solutions that speak directly to people. And that is encouraging. In addition to the sort of like the sort of more generic, you need to fight. When you orient your power with people, and you necessarily have to have a issue sets that provide that material benefit for people. I mean, it helps you once you get into power. It helps you legislatively.
Yep.
Because you have expectations that are created by those folks.
But that's why I'm so encouraged by what Bernie and AOC are doing here, which it's not, they are marrying their political project of, fundamentally changing, hopefully, our government so that we tax the wealthy more and provide a more robust social safety net and tackle income inequality. They are marrying that with the partisanship that 75% of the Democratic base wants. This is a way more advantageous position than when, Bernie in 2016 was being criticized for not really being a Democrat. These were all disingenuous, but, or being a sexist or whatever, outside of what is acceptable liberal thought. It is not the case right now. Polling is showing that, it's very the margins are so within the margin of error, so it's hard to be too determinative about it. But AOC is definitely seen as one of the future leaders of the party, and Bernie is seen as a leader. And so to be able to make their politics more mainstream for the voters that would be needed in a 2028 primary, I couldn't have necessarily foreseen this, but it is very encouraging in a sea of dark news.
Yeah, the news is pretty dark.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.